Now, the constitutional monarchy. France turns to be a constitutional monarchic state. It was looking at the actions of the people which are very, very violent. We have seen the people in the villages have attacked the castles of the manors, destroyed them, burnt the manorial documents, and forced the manors to leave the country. And at times they also killed. So now, looking at the violent reaction of the people, the king decided to be a constitutional monarch and agree that constitution will be supreme above him. This happened on the night of 4th August 1789. The constituent body which got established decided that they give up all the special privileges for the clergy and the nobles, and they also confiscated all the lands which are under the control of the church, which are under the control of the clergy, which are under the control of the nobles, all together accounted for the government to get an assets worth of 2 billion livres. So now the government is not at all still in a position to pay any interest because they have lot of money, they can clear all the debts, and they are in the positive side. So now they are in the positive side. So finally the drafting of the constitution completed by 1791. The drafting of the constitution, after completing thoroughly by 1791, they brought, instead of vesting the powers, the entire powers in a single person, we would divide the powers by establishing certain institutions. What are those institutions? Those are legislative, executive, and judicial. They established the institutions of legislative, executive, and judiciary by dividing the works and making the king just a constitutional monarch. They had a national assembly comprising of 745 members which will formulate the laws for the nation, and they have executive body to implement the laws and the judiciary to check and provide justice to the citizens of France. After establishing this one, they also brought the voting system. In making the voting system, they gave voting rights only to men, and women are brought into the passive voters. Men are brought into the active voters, and the men who are above 25 years of age and who pay at least 3 days amount of a daily labor or 3 days wage of a daily labor as a tax to the government are eligible to be the voters, which means the high bracket taxpayers only are eligible to vote. So again we can see a division in the voters. Passive voters, poor voters, those who are economically poor cannot be voters anymore, because as per the new law you should be in the bracket of high taxpayers, then only you are eligible to vote. So the changes from the constitutional form to the latest monarchic state to the constitutional monarchy. On 4th of August 1789, king agreed to be a constitutional monarch. The government lands, so church lands, the nobles lands, all together were brought under one hand. After confiscation, they got the assets worth of 2 billion livres, which made the government position to be stable without falling into any economic crisis. And next, we have the division of powers from the hand of the king to the legislative, executive, and judiciary. After the division of the power happened, they have the voting rights given to the people basing on their age, and on the bracket of taxpayers they brought certain criteria to make a person eligible for voting, and women are completely denied the voting rights and they were brought under the category of passive voters. The constitution also begins with the declaration that right to freedom, right to speech, right to equality, right of expression as the natural inalienable rights. So, the natural inalienable rights are the rights which are given by birth. A person who is born in France gets the natural rights to talk, to speak, to express his opinions. In a similar way, a freedom to do whatever he wants. So, these are considered as inalienable rights according to the new constitution of France, which are granted to all the people of France, all the citizens of France, whether they are active citizens or passive citizens. It is the responsibility of the government to make sure that the rights are not denied to any of its citizens in the country. So, the new constitution has brought in certain new laws. The rights to freedom, equality and fraternity got the inspiration from the constitutional framework of the France, which got a clear picture, and this has been clearly shown in the declaration of the France Constitution in 1791. So now, for namesake, we have a monarchy which has very limited powers when compared to the previous times. The entire authority rests with the people through their national assemblies. Legislative, executive and judiciary work for the people by the elected representatives, and every person is being given natural rights which are inalienable and which are not at all being able to be denied by any government or any other body. So, that is the responsibility of the government to make sure that these people are being given these particular rights and nobody takes away these people's basic rights. That is a main theme of the constitution, or the main declaration of the French constitution, which motivated many millions of people across Europe and across the globe to fight for the freedom. France now abolishes monarchy and turns to be republic. Till that moment, France made the monarch to be a constitutional monarch. King Louis XVI entered into a secret agreement with the King of Prussia, because the Prussian and the Austrian kings are worried against the developments which are happening in the neighboring state of France. So, with their support, he wanted to recapture the political power into his hands. Getting the knowledge of this, the Parliament, the National Assembly of France, voted in summer 1792 to fight a war against Prussia and Austria. Why they decided to fight a war? Because the king is secretly getting support from the Prussians and the Austrians. Here, the people thronged into the war from the provinces, from the villages, from every corner of the country. Men run away and joined the war. Why? Why did the people ran like that to join in the war? Here, they started to feel it is as their basic concern to save their nation. It is their own nation, and it is considered as a war between the kingship and all the common people against all aristocratic families which are present in Europe are considered to be the targeted of this war. That is the reason why from every corner of France, even in a far off village, we have people coming forward and joining in the war. So now when men are in the task of war, they always sung a song which was written by Robert D. Elsie. Robert D. Elsie wrote a song known as Marseillaise. Marseillaise became very famous because it was first sung in the Bastille Palace momentum, where people gathered and started singing the song and moving ahead. So later, today now, Marseillaise is a national anthem of France. So the national song of France. So Marseillaise has been a motivating song for many millions of people in France. So now men ready and joined the wars. Now women are left out with the tasks of fulfilling the daily needs of the household. Women has to earn, women has to take care of the families, women has to look after the daily works which are impending, like getting water, fetching water, or cleaning the utensils, working in the laundry shops as laundresses, working in the pastry shops, working in the bakery shops, working in the coffee shops. All these have become a tasks of the women because they are the main responsible people at home at present. Looking at the growing dissatisfaction of the people, people started to discuss these issues by forming certain clubs. These clubs are named as Saint Jacobin clubs. The Saint Jacobin clubs are the names of the convents which were present during that time. The Jacobin clubs were very famous at that point of time. And why people are dissatisfied even with the constitutional setup at that time? People are dissatisfied with the constitutional setup because there is no true voting right given to the people. Yes, king was brought under the bracket of constitutional powers, but in practicality, only the rich people who come under the category of high taxpayers only are eligible to vote, which means maybe they 10% of the people of France are also may not be eligible truly to vote. So the rest of the 90% are left out. So this is a very pathetic situation for the people of France. That is another reason why people continued to be in the wars and discuss their issues actively in the Jacobin clubs. It's not only the point of view of the men. Many of the women also actively participated and discussed the social and the political happenings in the nation. Everything has been discussed thoroughly, and many of the people of the Jacobin clubs decided to put long stripped trousers to mark as an end of the knee breeches rule. The long stripped trousers people are also known as sans-culottes people, and here it is very clear for us that the rule of the nobles, the rule of the rich, the rule of the clergy, the rule of the kingship has to come to an end, and the common man's rule has to flourish. This was the main aim of the discussions of the Jacobin clubs. This also motivated people to go and fight in the wars, which motivated the women to be very strong when men are at war. They took up various tasks to fulfill the daily requirements of their families as being the head of the family when the real head is at the task of the war. So the Jacobin clubs played a very vital role at that point of time. Now, as the rule of the monarchy was fluctuating in France, the Jacobin clubs became a widespread movement. The people are completely dissatisfied with the rule of the existing system of the constitutional monarchy. That's why people themselves dressed in the knee breeches, where they want to put an end to the knee breeches rule. So they dress themselves in the sans-culottes code, which means the full stripped trouser dresses, and they also put on red cap as a symbol of liberty for them, as a symbol of freedom for them. But in actual terms, they do not have this all in really, because the king was still doing some secret agreements with them. That is the reason why the war began. Now, after that, in 1792, the Jacobins decided to take a severe protest against the shortage of the food supplies for the people. So, on 10th of August 1792, at the Palace of Tuileries, the Tuileries Palace was the actual palace where the king resides. So, the king stays at the Palace of Tuileries, where The people gathered as a mass entered into the palace, massacred the king's guards, and kept king as a hostage. This was a fantastic step taken by the people under the influence of the Jacobin clubs. And they also decided that the king would be kept in hostage, and when the voting happened, they decided to kill the king as per the rules, because king was being kept under the action of treason of the kingdom, where he acted very unlawfully towards them, very problematic to them. Later, they also remodified all the laws. The special convention which came into power after the end of the kingship rule, now monarchy came to end legally in France. So now we got the establishment of the republican government in France. So the republican government, first step it has taken that every individual who is aged above 21 years of age, irrespective of his economical status, will get the right to vote. That is made clear by the convention which came to power in September 1792. The newly elected government, that is known as convention, which came into force from 21st September 1792, brought and declared that France to be republic. Republic needs two basic conditions. One, it should have a written constitution. Two, it should not have any hereditary ruler. So from now, the monarchy is completely banned and wiped out of the ruling of France. They already had a written constitution, and now they can elect a hereditary, non-hereditary ruler. So obviously from now France turns to be a republican country. After being republican, the king, the ex-king of France, Louis XVI, under the charges of treason, was being publicly hanged to death. That happened on 21st of Jan 1793 at the palace of de la Concorde. Even the Queen Mary Antoinette also met the same fate very close, just a month later. So with this, the monarchy turned to be a constitutional monarch. After turning into a constitutional monarch, now France turns to be a republican country and finishing off the king's family completely. Now the rule of the convention under the leadership of Robespierre's Maximilian starts up. So what happened? Why is the rule of Robespierre Maximilian popularly known as the Reign of Terror? Reign of Terror. Robespierre Maximilian was a leader who was elected by the convention, or the newly formed republican government headed by Robespierre Maximilian. This person's name is remembered as a terrified name in the history of France. He ruled just for 1 year, 1793 to 1794, but still he has achieved a brand of changes. What are the changes that he brought, and why people are so scared and his own supporters could not bear his rules and regulations? So what did he do actually, and what made his own supporters not to support him? Let's find out. Robespierre Maximilian came to power in 1793, and he was in power only for 1 year, that is up to 1794. So he had a severe control on the rules and regulations, and even the punishments were very severe. He wanted to streamline everything. In his speeches, when he made in the convention parliament hall, he always mentioned that in order to have freedom, we need to end the enemies of them, otherwise we will be perished. So in his intention, he want to weed out all the enemies, wash away all the enemies which would trouble the people in future and stop the freedom of the people in future. So you want to clear all those and make the people to have complete freedom in the long run of the future. So he want to be very strict in washing away the unnecessary issues what are present at that time. So in this process of washing away the things, he brought certain new policies. What are those? If he considers anyone as the enemies, in the word of enemies, he need to describe that. He considers the people as enemies who are against the Republican ideology, who are in the pro-kingship policy, pro-democratic methods, or pro any other methods which are against the Republican ideology of the France. He arrested them, he imprisoned them, and they were tried by the courts, the revolutionary courts. If the court found them as guilty, immediately they would be sent to guillotine. Guillotine is the name of a machine which was designed by Dr. Guillotine. Dr. Guillotine described a two-poled machine which has one blade which beheads the person's head from his body, which means literally killing a person using a machine. This is known as guillotine machine after the name of the inventor Dr. Guillotine. And whoever is sent to this guillotine will be guillotinized, means killed. If the punishments are very severe, if they do not follow the rules, they are liable for the punishments. And he also brought certain major changes like sealing the wages and prices of the products. He brought all the wages on a streamlined procedure, and he brought them at a single cap. Everybody must and should pay certain amount of wages for the workers, and the market prices will not increase as per the wish or the whims of the people in the market. That will be dictated by the government. So market prices are maintained at the reachable cost of the common people. It was a very fantastic step taken by Robespierre. And then meat and bread are rationed. Meat and bread are made available to the people even at very low cost and at the reach of the people. And if any farmer tries to sell his product outside the market, he will be punished severely. Government will fix the price of the crop, and people are forced to sell their crop to the market at the fixed price of the government, and no extra charges shall be laid on that, and no extra profits will be given. And later he also want to bring utmost equality completely. He want to eradicate the discrimination of madam and sir. He want all of them to have the citizenship rights irrespective of any discriminations. So he want to streamline the society on the guidelines of equality, market to be controlled by the government to make it reachable to the people and at the cost which can be afforded by the poor people of the society at that point of time in France. So yes, his policies are extremely very well and very good, which are well connected to the poor people, very well connected to the needy people. And he want to make equality in the true justice by bringing no discrimination on the people's side, not even calling the people with a special respect, call all of them as citizens. So now this was brought with an iron hand, very strict rules, very strict implementations, very severe punishments. By mistake or by chance, if you talk anything against the views of Robespierre, you will be imprisoned, you will be arrested, and you will be taken to the court, the revolutionary court, where sometimes you may be sent to the guillotine also as a punishment. So this much of extreme severe phase made his own supporters to feel that we need modernization, we need to be little bit soft when we are dealing with the people, we need to be modern in the sense we do not take decisions in a hurry, we need some time, we do not want such a severe punishments for anybody, we want to be soft in nature and make the people to understand what are the problems. In July 1794, Robespierre's Maximilian was tried by the court the revolutionary court, and on the very next day he was sent to the guillotine. And there ends the story of Robespierre Maximilian, a great person who dreamed to have a society on the basis of true equality, who brought the ceiling of the wages, who rationed the meat and wheat, the available cost of the people. But still, the way it was implemented was really very harsh and very tough, where the people could not bear it much more than just 1 year. And this brought the end of a great rule of Robespierre Maximilian, who tried his level best to make the society to get into the true equality lines by removing of all the discriminations. Yes, Robespierre's rule was really harsh and he gave severe punishments. Maybe that is a point which was a serious drawback for his rule. Other than that, he was really a social reformer in the society of France. That's the reason why rightly it is known as the reign of terror, the rule of Robespierre Maximilian. Now, the directory rule over France. We have seen the Robespierre Maximilian rule. People were suffering a lot because of his severe punishments. So people decided to go for the other set of rules. With the fall of Robespierre's Jacobin government falling down, the wealthy middle class came to power in France. So now the power is in the hands of the wealthy middle class people. They have drafted a new constitution. They have brought new changes in the existing constitution. That is, the voting rights were denied to the non-propertied people, which means only the rich and the privileged people who can own some properties, who are paying certain amount as tax, only are eligible to vote, which actually was contrary as per the laws made by Jacobin. That's why they changed the constitution. And later we have elected council. So the elected council decided that we would not have any one person's rule again, like what we have experienced in the Robespierre Maximilian case. So they decided to have two branches, that is elected councils. In that they will have directory group, executive group. Each group will have again 5 representatives, not at all in one person's hand. They will have 5 representatives, and most of the times the directory and the executive were always in clash with each other. They never used to agree or go hand in hand with each other. They always used to take the opposite sides and used to fight. This created a lot of political instability in the country. And this political instability paved the way for the rise of a military dictator, Napoleon Bonaparte. So now, Napoleon Bonaparte declared himself as the ruler of France. This clearly shows for us that France, which was under the monarchic rule under Louis XVI, got converted into constitutional monarchy. Again, from constitutional monarchy, it turned into complete republican state. From the republican state, it became into a directory rule, and finally it moves back to the situation of monarchic rule. Though it came back to the same old system of ruling, the ideals of liberty, fraternity, and the brotherhood relationships and the equality principle did not leave inspiring the people in various parts of Europe and all over the globe. So now let's find out what was the role of the woman and what did Napoleon do. At the end we shall discuss. We shall now find out what is the role of the woman in the French Revolution. How did they contribute, and what are they active or passive? We will find out. What was the role of the woman in the revolution? That we shall find out now. Let us see here. women has to play many roles in the society, even in France also. Let us see, why did women work actually? When we were discussing about the issue of war, when the National Assembly decided to wage war against Austria and Prussia, many men thronged into the war from every corner of France. So the main responsibility came at the hand of women at that point of time. And even always women participated in the French Revolution. It may be in the first phase, in the Bastille Palace incident, or it may be in the Palace of Tuileries, or it may be in any of the Robespierre Maximilian or the Jacobin clubs. Whatever may be the reason, French always people thought that women also should participate in the revolutionary, so that we can pressurize the king, the government, the system. Then only the pressure can be felt. So in the similar lines, we can see that woman has taken the responsibility of working for living, to run the family. So in running the family, what are the jobs that she has taken up? The jobs mainly she has taken up are working as a laundress, working in a laundry shop, sold flowers. Later, she worked as a domestic servant, selling fruits and also selling vegetables. Not just working, she also did many other household activities. Some of them are maintaining the family, fetching water, maintaining or looking after or taking care for the children. Cooking is a major responsibility, and queue up in the bread and finally attain bread for the children at the house. So women first worked to get some money to run the family, like laundresses, fruit seller or flower seller, or even she worked as a domestic servant, and later she also has taken care of the family by fetching water, queuing up for the bread, and then taking care of the children, cooking for the children. And these all are the responsibilities or the duties which are carried out by a woman even in France. Only a few section of people who are wealthy, rich and the noble family people only are exposed to get education. So the other third estate generation people or the third estate group of people do not have access to education or no proper training to do any of the below category of jobs. So the situation of the woman was really tragic at that point of time, but still she never gave up. They had many revolutionary clubs to have equal passionate to participate in the political developments of the country. They want the political freedom equally with men. So there are nearly 60 clubs where women participated, and they also were completely dissatisfied when Robespierre Maximilian brought certain new changes. The revolutionary government brought revolutionary changes, but still they did not acknowledge or provide right to vote for women. They completely dissatisfied women. Yes, they brought certain new laws to change the lives of women. They brought compulsory education for girls. They have made divorce legal. They should not pressurize any girl to marry without the will or the consent of the girl. So these all are certain new laws which made the lives of the women much better, but still they were not given the right to vote equally with men. Women fought even during the time of reign of terror. Their ultimate goal was to have equality in right to vote. They want the right to vote equally with men. They want to have the right to vote in determining the future of the nation. So they fought like this continuously for more than 200 years, and many countries these issues were broken up, and in many countries women fought against the existing systems to attain equality. Finally, in 1946 in France, the right to vote is given equally for men and women. With this, the large struggles of women for equality for 200 years came to an end. So women played very active role in the French Revolution, after the French Revolution, the further consequences, and they also fought for their right to equality by attaining right to vote in 1946. Many of the women, though they do not belong to the first or the second estate families, they belong to the third estate families where they are very poor. They have to work as laundresses, fruit sellers, vegetable sellers, flower sellers, or sometimes as domestic maids. But still, they have to take care of their own families. They have to take care of the children. They have to cook for the children. They have to stand in the queues for water. They have to stand in the bakery queues to get bread. They perform all these things when men are at war, preserving or serving for the nation. They, from their point of view, also contributed a large to build the nation. But they were completely dissatisfied when the revolutionary government of Robespierre did not acknowledge the right to vote for women in 1791. They were completely dissatisfied with this statement, and later, though the revolutionary government brought certain steps which made the lives better for the women, women were given the right to vote for education, no right to vote, but given the right to read or educated, right to train for small jobs, and also no force in regards to marriage, and we also have divorce made to be legal with the consent of the girl. So all these things made their lives better, but they want the political equality, the right to vote equally with men, which they were able to achieve by forming different revolutionary organizations and associations in the name of the clubs. They have nearly 60 clubs, and they fought nearly for more than 200 years. Even in the most terror period, they were in struggle with the existing system for right to equality and right to vote. And finally in 1946, they were able to achieve their long awaited dream of right to vote equally with men, and the 200 years long struggle came to an end in 1946. So women had a very vital role what they have played in the French Revolution, and also finally they achieved their targets in a long awaited struggle. Abolition of slavery. The abolition of slavery was not very easy in France. It took nearly 100 to 150 years for them to abolish slavery. First of all, what is the need of a slave for the French people? Actually, the French people never needed for themselves any slaves. They used to buy the Negroes from the local chiefs. They used to go all along way to the Africa, and after reaching Africa, the famous ports like Nantes and Bordeaux, after reaching there, they used to consult the local chief leader, and they used to buy the slaves from them by giving him some gifts, and later they used to pack them and bind their hands, buckle up their hands, and the conditions were very horrible and severe, and whoever is alive only will survive till the last. If anyone dies in the middle because of suffocation or because of any health issues, they will be thrown in the middle in the sea or in the ocean. How pathetic the situation is. And like this, the slaves or the Negroes of Africa are being deported to America to work in the fields, to give a great economic gain for the American landlords. So the people traveled from Europe to Africa, from Africa to America. So this triangular slave trade continued for more than a century, and many of the Africans branded as Negroes were taken away from their homelands to far off distant places and forced to work on very hardship situations. So some of the famous places where in America they used to take, the places are San Domingo, Martinique, and Guadeloupe are some of the stations where they were being the home places for the Negroes who migrated from Africa, and they were brought to United States of America. So finally in 1794, after continuous thorough deliberations and serious discussions, the existing directory rule has given free slaves and they banned slave trade. But after 10 years, Napoleon, who declared himself as the monarch of France, reintroduced slavery in 1804. From 1804 till 1848, the slavery continued, and finally in 1848, the slavery was completely banned in France. So like this, slavery came to an end in France. Slavery means bringing the Negroes or the dark colored people from Africa. They were forced to work in the fields of the rich people in United States, and then they were not given any kind of payment for that. So they have to work at very less wage or no wage. This bondage of working is called as slavery without any rights, and this was encouraged by the African countries because the local chiefs used to sell off their own tribal people at very less cost. The European people used to buy them and then export them to the United States of America in very suffocating situations in the ships, which are filled with 300 to 400 people in a single room, and very hard time for them to spend on the boat. And later they used to go to the countries like Saint Domingo, Martinique, Guadeloupe, and the famous ports from where the slaves are being exported are Nantes and Bordeaux. Finally in 1794, the Directory rule has given free trade and no slaves further. They have given freedom for the slaves. But in 1804, Napoleon reintroduced the slavery concept because he wanted more number of slaves to justify his rule and to gain larger economic interest by making them to work in their fields. And later in 1848, the slavery was completely banned. With this, abolition of slavery happened in France in 1848. Now, the revolutionary changes which have occurred in every day-to-day life of the French people. We shall have a brief synopsis of what are the major changes that have been brought and what is the differentiation before and after the revolution. When we take in the large lines, we can say that the changes which are brought in law after 1789, the changes were incorporated is the following of liberty and equality into practice by the law. So the law has been made to get liberty and equality into really practice in every day-to-day life of the people of France. That was a major achievement of the people after the 1789 revolt which happened during that time. And later, the freedom of speech, the natural rights, when the freedom of speech was actually being curbed when the king's rule was present, there was a strict censorship on the writings of the people, on the publications. So once they are approved by the royal family members only, that can be printed. But in actual terms here, when it was being placed under the natural rights, which are inalienable rights, where nobody can deny these rights to the people by the government, so people can express their views freely, openly against the government also. But now the difference after and before the revolution is, before the revolution everything should be in pleasing manner to the kings, not even a single word against the king. But afterwards we have newspapers, pamphlets, books, poems, poetries, songs flooding to the people of France from every corner, making the people to aware of the present happening situations so that they can understand it very clearly. It's not only confined to the educated section of people. It's not only associated with the educated section of people like reading books, reading newspapers, magazines, etc. It was also written in the form of folk songs, traditional songs, where even the uneducated people also can understand what is actually happening at that point of time. So it not only broke the barriers but also connected the larger group of the France. So there was a clear variation of life before and after the revolution. In 1804, the Napoleon took over the charge as a monarch of France, which brought many people saw Napoleon as a modernizer of Europe in the initial days. He brought many changes. He brought the uniform system of weights and scales. He was actually considered as a modernizer for the Europe at that point of time. But later, when we observe, Napoleon army is invading every corner of Europe. He want to redraw the map of Europe, which again became problematic to all the other countries and including France. So again there was a division on the Napoleon's rule in the France itself. Some people started to favor the rule, some people started to question the actions of the Napoleon. So finally, after 4 battles were waged, in 1815 at the Battle of Waterloo, Napoleon lost the battle. With this, the rule of Napoleon comes to an end. Napoleon, who raised from a status of a normal soldier in an army to a position of a military commander, from then taking over to be the dictator of France. His rose level inspired many people not only in France but across the world. His spirits of high intentions have always, even today, been an inspiring story for many millions of people across the centuries from 18th century to the present 21st century. That's all we have in this lesson. In this lesson of French Revolution, we have covered all the aspects related to the reasons for the Bastille Palace incident, what are the conditions of the society at that point of time, what are the divisions in the society, what were the steps taken by the king which triggered the anger of the people, and later we also have seen the next consequences of revolution and the rule of Robespierre Maximilian, rightly known as Reign of Terror, and then the Directory rule, and finally the rising up of military dictator to the power Napoleon. With this we come to the end of political structural changes in France. We also have focused our attention on the women's role and the abolition of slavery. So with this we get the complete picture on France and the growth and the changes in the political structures of France. So I hope you all understood all the points clearly.
If you like this video, please give a thumbs up. Please subscribe to our channel to get more videos on CBSE syllabus.